The unexpected prodigy. The crystalline spires of the Stellar Academy of Advanced Sciences pierced the purple sky of Kepler 186f, their surfaces refracting the light of two setting suns. Inside one of the lower chambers, 11-year-old Lena Watson stood before the admissions council, her small frame dwarfed by the towering alien beings who studied her with varying degrees of skepticism. The head of the council, HFY Starborne, a being composed of shifting iridescent crystals, leaned forward. You understand, young human, that this institution has never admitted a child of your species before. The neural demands alone have proved overwhelming for adult humans. Lena lifted her chin, meeting the crystalline patterns that served as HFY Starborne's eyes. I understand, Director. I also understand that no one has solved the quantum paradox matrix you sent as part of the entrance exam in under an hour. I did it in 43 minutes. A ripple of movement passed through the council members. To her left, a vapor-based being named Mist of Dawn condensed slightly, a sign of surprise in their species. The evaluation cube floating in the center of the chamber pulsed with a soft blue light, confirming Lena's claim. The solution was unorthodox, rumbled Karthax, a massive silicon-based creature. It ignored several fundamental principles of quantum mechanics. No, Lena replied quietly. It didn't ignore them. It proved they were incomplete. She stepped forward, her simple earth clothing contrasting sharply with the advanced tech surrounding her. May I demonstrate? Without waiting for permission, she reached out to the evaluation cube. The device responded to her touch, projecting a complex series of equations into the air. Lena's fingers moved through them with practiced ease, rearranging, combining, transforming the mathematical dance into something entirely new. Here, she said, highlighting a particular sequence. Traditional quantum theory assumes a linear progression of probability collapse. But what if we consider it as a spiral instead? Each possibility feeding into the next, creating a self-sustaining loop of quantum states. The chamber fell silent. HFY Starborne's crystalline form shimmered with intense patterns of light, a sign of deep thought in their species. The other council members exchanged glances, their various forms of communication creating a subtle symphony of movement and energy in the room. Impossible, Karthax finally rumbled. The energy requirements alone would be negligible, Lena interrupted, adding another layer to her projection. Because the system feeds itself. Each quantum state provides the energy for the next, like a perpetual motion machine, but at the subatomic level. HFY Starborne rose from their seat, their crystalline form casting rainbow patterns across the chamber walls. You're suggesting that quantum entropy can be reversed through self-sustaining probability loops. This contradicts everything we know about Dash. Everything you know, Lena corrected gently. But what if what you know isn't everything there is to know? The evaluation cube pulsed brighter, running calculations at incredible speed. One by one, Lena's theories were proven correct, each computation adding weight to her revolutionary approach. The council members watched in stunned silence as decades of established quantum theory were not destroyed, but transformed, expanded into something greater. How? Mist of Dawn whispered, their vaporous form swirling with curiosity. How did you see what our greatest minds missed for centuries? Lena shrugged, suddenly looking very much like the child she was. I just looked at it differently. Sometimes the best way to solve a puzzle is to forget everything you think you know about how it should work. HFY Starborne's crystalline form pulsed with a deep blue light, a sign of decision made. It seems, young Lena Watson, that we have much to learn from each other. They turned to the other council members. I move to accept the human child's application to the academy. More than that, I volunteer to serve as her personal mentor. The motion passed unanimously, though Karthax's silicon form rumbled with lingering doubt. As Lena left the chamber, clutching her acceptance certificate, she couldn't help but smile. She had done it, taken the first step toward proving that humanity's worth wasn't measured in technological advancement or physical capability, but in their unique way of seeing the universe. Little did she know that this was just the beginning. The true test of her abilities, and humanity's potential, was yet to come. Hidden patterns. The first month at the Stellar Academy passed like a whirlwind of discovery for Lena. Her quarters, a transparent dome that offered a stunning view of the binary star system, became her sanctuary. Here, surrounded by holographic study materials and complex simulations, she felt most at home. Today, however, she faced a new challenge. ZYXstar had summoned her to the pattern recognition chamber, a vast spherical room where the walls themselves served as computational surfaces. As she entered, the crystalline being was already there, their form refracting light in complex sequences. "You've mastered the basic curriculum faster than expected," ZYXstar began, their voice resonating through the chamber. "It's time to test your limits." The chamber walls suddenly blazed to life, countless symbols and equations flowing across every surface. Lena's eyes widened as she recognized fragments of different mathematical systems, some human, others distinctly alien. "This is the convergence puzzle," ZYXstar explained. "It's considered unsolvable. Every species sees different patterns, different solutions, but none have found the underlying truth that connects them all." Lena walked slowly around the chamber, her mind already beginning to process the flood of information. "How long have people been trying to solve it?" "Millennia," ZYXstar replied. "The puzzle predates our civilization. We found it carved into the ruins of a dead world." As Lena studied the flowing symbols, something began to nag at the edge of her consciousness. There was something familiar about the way the patterns moved, something that reminded her of music, she whispered. "Pardon?" "It's like music," Lena said, more confidently now. "Look at the way the symbols flow, it's not just mathematics, it's rhythm. Each species sees different patterns because they're listening to different parts of the same symphony." ZYXstar's crystalline form flickered with interest. "Explain." Lena's hands moved through the air, conducting an invisible orchestra. "Here, these quantum equations, they're like a baseline, a steady rhythm underneath everything. And these biological formulas? They're the melody, rising and falling in natural patterns. The astronomical calculations are the harmony, binding it all together." She turned to face her mentor, eyes shining with excitement. "We've been trying to solve it like a puzzle, but it's not a puzzle at all, it's a performance. Every species contributes their own part to the whole." The chamber hummed as Lena began to rearrange the patterns, not by mathematical principles, but by musical ones. She grouped similar rhythms together, matched harmonious frequencies, created counterpoints between seemingly opposing formulas. Suddenly, the scattered symbols began to align themselves, flowing together in perfect synchronization. The chamber filled with a strange, ethereal harmony, the mathematical equivalent of music. "Impossible," ZYXstar whispered, their crystalline form vibrating in resonance with the chamber. "In all our studies, we never considered, how did you see it?" Lena smiled. "On Earth, I played piano. Music and math aren't so different, they're both about finding patterns in chaos. Sometimes you have to feel the rhythm before you can understand the equation." Before ZYXstar could respond, an alarm blared through the chamber. The patterns on the walls began to shift erratically, their harmony disrupted by something new. "What's happening?" Lena asked, watching as her carefully arranged patterns began to dissolve. ZYXstar's form pulsed with concern. "Something is interfering with the Academy's main computer. The patterns, they're being corrupted." Lena watched in horror as the beautiful symphony she had created began to unravel. But in the chaos, she noticed something else, a new pattern emerging, hidden beneath the disruption. "There's something else here," she said, pointing to a sequence of symbols that seemed to move against the flow of the others. "Look, it's like a counter-melody, but it's not part of the original composition." ZYXstar moved closer, their crystalline form casting prismatic light across the chaotic display. "A virus?" "No, something more complex. Something alive, Lena finished. Whatever's causing this, it's not just a program, it's thinking, adapting, learning. As they watched, the new pattern grew stronger, threatening to overwhelm the original harmony. But Lena had seen something in those few moments of perfect synchronization, a glimpse of something greater than either pattern alone. I think, she said slowly, I know how to fix this. But you'll have to trust me. ZYX hesitated for just a moment before nodding. Show me. As Lena stepped forward to face this new challenge, she couldn't help but wonder what other secrets lay hidden in the ancient puzzle, and what price they might have to pay to uncover them. The ultimate challenge. The pattern recognition chamber hummed with nervous energy as Lena faced the corrupted patterns swirling across its walls. Her mind raced, processing the complex interplay between the original harmony and the invasive sequence that threatened to destroy it. Instead of fighting it, she said, her fingers moving through the holographic display, we need to integrate it. Like adding a new instrument to an orchestra, it changes the song, but makes it richer. ZYX's crystalline form pulsed with doubt. The risk is considerable. If you're wrong, we could lose the original pattern entirely. But Lena was already working, her hands dancing through the symbols as if playing an invisible instrument. She began to weave the new pattern into the existing harmony, not forcing it to conform, but finding ways for it to complement the original structure. There's something familiar about this new sequence, she muttered, more to herself than to ZYX. It's almost like it's trying to communicate. As she worked, the chamber's atmosphere began to change. The harsh, discordant clash between the patterns gradually shifted, becoming something new, something neither had been before. The walls pulsed with a soft, rhythmic light that seemed to follow Lena's movements. Suddenly, the symbols aligned in a way no one had anticipated. The chamber filled with a brilliant light, and a new presence made itself known. A voice, neither human nor alien, spoke directly into their minds. Connection established. After 50,000 years, a bridge has been built. ZYX's form crystallized in shock. What are you? We are the archivists, the voice replied. We left this puzzle as a test, waiting for a species that could understand both logic and intuition, both pattern and chaos. We waited for ones who could see beyond their own perspective. Lena stepped forward, her heart pounding. The puzzle wasn't just about finding a solution, was it? It was about finding a way to communicate, to bridge different ways of thinking. Yes, young one. Your species fascinates us. You understand mathematics, yet you dream. You follow logic, yet you create art. You are the bridge we have been waiting for. The symbols on the walls shifted again, forming complex sequences that made even ZYX's crystalline form vibrate with amazement. This is beyond anything we've ever encountered. Knowledge from civilizations that vanished millions of years ago. But Lena had noticed something else in the patterns. There's more, isn't there? Something urgent. You wouldn't have revealed yourselves now unless there was a reason. The presence seemed to approve. Perceptive. Yes, there is danger coming, a threat that no single species can face alone. We needed to find those who could unite different ways of thinking, different ways of being. The galaxy needs bridges, not barriers. What kind of threat? ZYXR demanded. One that exists between dimensions, between thoughts. It feeds on division, on the inability of species to truly understand each other. But now, perhaps, there is hope. The presence turned its attention to Lena. You have shown remarkable ability, young human. But the real test is yet to come. Will you help us prepare your people, all people, for what lies ahead? Lena looked at ZYXR, then back at the swirling patterns that represented the archivists. The weight of the galaxy seemed to rest on her shoulders, yet somehow, she felt ready. I'll help, she said firmly. But I have one condition, we do this together. No more secrets, no more tests. If we're going to face this threat, we need to trust each other completely. The chamber filled with a warm light, approval from the archivists. So be it. Let the preparation begin. As the presence faded and the patterns settled into a new configuration, Lena realized that her journey at the academy had been leading to this moment. She wasn't just here to learn, she was here to help bridge the gap between species, between ways of thinking, between dimensions themselves. The real challenge was just beginning. Bridging worlds. The following weeks transformed the Stellar Academy into a hub of feverish activity. The discovery of the archivist's message had sent shockwaves through the galactic academic community. Scholars from dozens of species converged on the academy, each bringing their own perspective to the impending crisis. In the midst of this chaos, Lena found herself in an unexpected role. Rather than just a student, she had become a translator of sorts, not of languages, but of ideas. Her quarters had been converted into a collaborative space where representatives from different species could work together. The problem, Lena explained to a group of varied beings, isn't that we think differently. It's that we haven't learned to combine our ways of thinking. She stood before a holographic display showing the merged patterns from the recognition chamber. Nyx, a quantum wave being who existed in multiple states simultaneously, fluctuated with interest. But how do we merge consciousness streams that operate on fundamentally different principles? The same way we merged the patterns, Lena replied, manipulating the hologram. We don't force them to be the same, we find ways they can complement each other. Look at this. She pulled up a new simulation, one she'd been working on with HFY. It showed different thought patterns interweaving, creating something greater than the sum of its parts. The assembled beings watched in fascination as the simulation demonstrated how different species' mental processes could work in harmony. The threat the archivists warned us about, she continued, feeds on our inability to truly understand each other. But what if that's also its weakness? What if our different ways of thinking, when properly combined, are exactly what we need to defeat it? A rustling sound came from the corner where Dr. Vexthor, a moss-like being known for their skepticism, had been observing. Theory is one thing, young human. Practice is another. How do you propose we actually implement this, merger of minds? Lena smiled. I'll show you. She activated another simulation, this one showing the academy itself. We convert the entire academy into a massive version of the pattern recognition chamber. But instead of just displaying patterns, it becomes a space where different forms of consciousness can interact directly. The room erupted in discussion, some excited, others skeptical. But before anyone could raise objections, an alarm blared through the academy. The lights flickered, and the holographic displays distorted. It's happening, HFY's voice cut through the chaos. The dimensional barriers are weakening. They're coming through. Through the window, Lena could see strange distortions in the purple sky, like reality itself was being torn apart. But in those tears, she saw something else, patterns, similar to the ones in the chamber but twisted, wrong somehow. Everyone, she called out, her voice steady despite her racing heart, we don't have time for debates anymore. We need to implement the integration protocol now. The assembled beings looked at each other, centuries of diplomatic caution warring with the urgency of the moment. Finally, Nyx pulsed with decision. The human is right. We trust her judgment. As the others voiced their agreement, Lena quickly began coordinating the Academy's transformation. The walls hummed with power as new systems came online, converting the entire structure into a vast consciousness melding chamber. Remember, she instructed as the beings took their positions, don't fight the differences. Embrace them. Let them make us stronger together than we ever could be apart. As the dimensional tiers grew larger and the first signs of the threat began to manifest, Lena stood at the center of it all, a bridge between worlds, species, and ways of thinking. The ultimate test of her theory, and humanity's potential, was about to begin. A new paradigm. The Academy trembled as reality itself seemed to bend and twist. Through the growing tears in spacetime, shadowy entities began to emerge, beings that existed between dimensions, feeding on discord and misunderstanding. But this time, they faced something unprecedented, a united front of consciousness, guided by a human child's unique perspective. Now! Lena called out, her voice carrying through the Academy's newly integrated systems. Everyone, focus your thoughts through the pattern matrix. The assembled beings, crystalline, gaseous, quantum, and organic, merged their consciousness streams through the Academy's enhanced systems. The walls pulsed with energy as different forms of thought began to harmonize, creating something entirely new. Through their merged consciousness, Lena could sense the nature of their adversary more clearly. The beings weren't just invaders, they were the embodiment of entropy, of breakdown in understanding. They sought to isolate, to separate, to break down the connections between species and thoughts. They're trying to disrupt our patterns, HFY observed, their crystalline form vibrating with tension. Our unity is hurting them. Lena watched as the shadow beings recoiled from the harmonized thoughts of the united species. But it wasn't enough, they were still coming through the tiers, adapting to their defense. Then she saw it, a pattern within a pattern, just like in the original puzzle. Everyone, listen, she projected through their shared consciousness. We're not just defending, we're creating something new. Something they can't exist against. Understanding flowed through the merged minds. The Academy's systems began to pulse with a new rhythm, one that combined logic and intuition, pattern and chaos, structure and creativity. The shadow beings writhed as this new form of existence began to spread. It's working. Nyx pulsed with excitement. The dimensional tiers are closing. But as the last of the shadow beings retreated, something unexpected happened. The merged consciousness of the assembled beings didn't separate, instead, it expanded, reaching out beyond the Academy, touching minds across the galaxy. This is what the archivists were preparing us for, Lena realized. Not just to fight the threat, but to evolve beyond it. To create a new way of existing together. The Academy had become more than a building, it was now a beacon, broadcasting this new form of unified consciousness across space. Species that had never been able to truly understand each other were suddenly connected, their different ways of thinking combining to create something greater than anyone had imagined. As the crisis passed and the new reality settled, Lena stood in what had once been the pattern recognition chamber, now transformed into something far more significant. HFY approached her, their crystalline form shimmering with new patterns. You've changed everything, they said softly. Not just how we think, but who we are. Lena smiled, watching as beings who had once struggled to communicate now shared thoughts and ideas effortlessly. No, she replied. We changed everything. Together. The Academy had become the first of many bridges, between species, between dimensions, between ways of thinking. And at its heart stood a human child who had shown the galaxy that the greatest strength lies not in uniformity, but in the harmony of differences. As news of what had happened spread across the galaxy, more species began to join this new consciousness network. The threat that had meant to divide them had instead united them in ways no one had thought possible. And it had all started with a simple insight from a human child, that sometimes the best way to solve a puzzle is to change how you look at it. The story of Lena Watson and the Stellar Academy became legend, told across countless worlds as a reminder that the greatest advances often come not from technology or power, but from the ability to see beyond our own limitations and truly understand each other.